Here is a rewritten, cleaned, and cohesive version at roughly 1,200 words, with no headings, no brackets, and no transcription artifacts, written as a continuous narrative. There was never enough money for research, and that was the cruel irony of his condition. Doctors tried one approach, then another, hoping something might work. For 7 years at a time, Ricardo Montalbán lived with pain so constant that he described it as something he simply learned to endure. It was pain he could tolerate, even as it quietly shaped every decision he made. In 1977, Montalbán rented a storage unit in Los Angeles and never returned. Inside were contracts he had fought to keep buried, photographs the public had never seen, and documents revealing a medical condition so severe it had caused him to collapse on set more than once. Producers were begged to keep it quiet. When his foundation finally opened the unit after his death, they realized he had been living two separate lives. One was the elegant, composed figure audiences adored. The other was a man in constant physical battle, silenced by an industry that feared weakness. Ricardo Montalbán was born on November 25, 1920, in Mexico City, but his character was shaped far from the capital. He grew up in Torreon, Coahuila, a modest city where routines were steady and everyone knew one another. His parents, Spanish immigrants who had left Mexico City due to instability, raised their 4 children in a Catholic household grounded in discipline, faith, and hard work. His father ran a dry goods store, while his mother managed the home with quiet strength. Ricardo, the youngest, absorbed lessons about dignity, posture, and perseverance that stayed with him for life. At just 6 years old, he was diagnosed with a rare congenital arteriovenous malformation in his spine. The condition brought chronic pain, nerve issues, and long-term risks. He learned early that in show business, appearing fragile could end a career before it began. So he hid it. For decades, even when the work demanded more than his body could reasonably give, he said nothing. By the age of 10, he was already performing in school plays and local theater, mimicking radio stars and chasing the feeling of holding an audience's attention. His father wanted him to pursue business, but acting felt like freedom. At 16, he moved to Mexico City, enrolled at the National Conservatory of Music, and dropped out after a year, choosing the uncertainty of acting over security. Radio dramas trained his voice, timing, and emotional control, helping him learn how to move people without being seen. His film career took off quickly. In the early 1940s, roles in Mexican cinema turned him into a star, earning him the nickname El Galán de Oro. Yet fame came with physical danger. During a sword-fighting scene, a prop blade cut his throat, leaving a scar he carried for life. The roles were romantic and profitable, but they also trapped him in a narrow image. The Latin lover label paid well but limited his range. Around this time, his personal life deepened. While living in Los Angeles, he fell in love with Georgiana Young, half-sister of Loretta Young. They married quietly in 1944, despite studio warnings about an interracial marriage. Their union lasted over 6 decades and produced 4 children. It became one of Hollywood's longest and most stable marriages. By the late 1940s, Hollywood beckoned. MGM offered him a contract, and films like Fiesta and On an Island with You made him a recognizable face. Studios worried about his accent and often dubbed his voice. He endured risky stunts, long hours, and recurring infections, all while hiding his spinal condition. Even as he gained success, he pushed back against roles that leaned into stereotypes, sometimes clashing openly with studio executives. The turning point came in 1951 during a Western film when he was thrown from a horse, knocked unconscious, and trampled. The injury worsened his already fragile spine. Doctors discovered severe damage, but he concealed braces under costumes and continued working. The pain never truly left. Despite this, his career expanded. Broadway brought him acclaim, including a Tony nomination. Television roles followed, culminating in his unforgettable performance as Khan Noonien Singh on Star Trek. His portrayal blended intelligence, menace, and charisma, drawing millions of viewers and cementing his place in pop culture. When he returned as Khan in The Wrath of Khan in 1982, his improvised scream became legendary. At the same time, he became the face of Chrysler's Cordoba, selling luxury with the famous phrase, "rich Corinthian leather." Though the term was largely marketing invention, his delivery was so convincing it entered cultural memory. From 1977 to 1984, Fantasy Island made him a weekly presence in millions of homes. As Mr. Roarke, he embodied calm authority and mystery. Behind the scenes, the production was demanding and expensive, and his pain intensified. He directed episodes, fought for diverse casting, and pushed against stereotypes. In 1997, he sued the studio over profit participation, alleging manipulated accounting. The case settled privately, but exposed industry practices that affected many performers. His partnership with Hervé Villechaize was central to the show's success, but disputes over pay eventually fractured it. Ratings fell after Villechaize's departure, proving how fragile television chemistry could be. Throughout these years, Montalban's health declined. He relied on painkillers, collapsed on set, and returned to work even after serious accidents. A major car crash fractured his hip and worsened his spinal injuries. Still, he refused to step away, using camera angles and restraint to hide his limitations. In 1978, he won an Emmy for a television miniseries, and his activism expanded. As president of the Screen Actors Guild, he fought for pay equity and minority representation, even testifying before Congress. The cost was real. He lost roles and was labeled difficult, but he accepted it as the price of principle. His faith guided his life as much as his activism. A devout Catholic, he turned down lucrative offers that conflicted with his beliefs and supported dozens of charities. In 1998, Pope John Paul II honored him for his charitable work, a rare recognition for an actor. By the 1990s, decades of strain culminated in a 9-hour spinal surgery that left him partially paralyzed. He used a wheelchair in private but maintained his composed public image. Over his lifetime, he underwent more than 60 surgeries. Pain became a constant companion. Even so, he continued working into his 80s, lending his voice to animated films and mentoring younger actors. His final years were marked by declining health but unwavering dignity. He died on January 14, 2009 at age 88 from congestive heart failure. After his death, another truth emerged. Quietly, without public acknowledgement, he had funded scholarships for over 100 Latino actors through the organization he helped found decades earlier. It was not done for recognition. It was done to build a future. The world remembered the elegance, the voice, the posture. What it did not see was the lifelong pain, the hidden braces, the silence he carried so others might have space to stand taller. Ricardo Montalbán did not just perform dignity. He lived it.